But there's a difference between rapport and connection. So rapport is kind of more you guys are like in sync and you're kind of in a flow as far as conversation, and just there's no like awkward pauses and things are kind of just rolling and all that stuff, which is still good. That's still required. But there wasn't a single topic that you went deep on, like, at all. The amount of, like, you guys basically, you or her brought up something, you guys talked about it, you exchanged some information, some, like, surface level information, and then you went on to the next thing. By the time it got to, like, the 45, 50-minute mark, you guys were still talking about surface level stuff and, like, I can't remember, it was, like, what kind of candy you like or cake or something like that. Or you're talking about like what she was talking about, like what she likes on a taco or something like that. And 45 minutes in, you guys should have already been talking about some fairly deep stuff. But like the entire date stayed at the same extremely surface level. The only thing you did was you went to just different surface level things. So you might think, oh, I'm getting to know her, I'm getting to blah, blah, whatever. But you guys don't really know each other. It was literally just like surface level information, and now okay, cool, you guys know you guys know information about each other, but you didn't really go deep into motivations or like what drives them overall. So if you're going to be in any type of romantic relationship, even if it's just like friends with benefits or whatever, there needs to some level. Well, let me back up. The more ways that you can differentiate yourself from other guys and do more than other guys, the better. One way to do that is for her to feel like you understand her and that she's being understood, and kind of like a little bit about who she actually is as a person. You kind of want to get to the point where they tell you things that they really only tell people who are close to them. So that's the thing that happens with me. Like I always go deep. It's pretty common for people to be like, oh, I've never told it, or oh, I like never tell anyone this, or oh, this is a little bit embarrassing, but blah, 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 whatever. Because I go deep, I reveal deep things about myself, and that prompts other people to be like, oh, okay, it's okay now that I do it. That's, side note, that's like a little tactic you can use, is it's kind of the same thing as when you're escalating. And I say, whatever you want the girl to do, you do first. So to get people to open up, that's one of the reasons why I'm expressive and I just like say whatever and I'm super open, is because that usually, most people, they're like, oh, can I be open about this, or is this too weird, or is this too much? By me opening up a little bit first, that lets the other person know indirectly, okay, it's okay for me to open up. Now, you don't necessarily have to open up first. That just helps the process, but you should be like asking her deep questions about like why she thinks a thing, why she does something, not just what, because all your things were like what questions, like what do you do is just like surface level stuff. It should be, well, why do you do that? Oh, so you're so you're like the type of person that blah blah blah. Like if a girl was a nurse, you could say, you like really like helping people. Yeah, I just blah blah whatever. Oh, okay. Do you just like help people all the time, like in your life? Like what kind of other things do you do? And then now all of a sudden the conversation goes from information exchange to now she's talking about not just the reason why she's a nurse, which is the emotional part, like the deep thing. She likes helping people, but now you're emphasizing the conversation has now turned from information, like the what, to now you're expanding on the why. Like, okay, you like helping people. And you could even do another why question. Why do you like helping people? And then you could say, oh, so do you do that with everything in your life? And now you're asking her to give you more examples on her why. So read my article on, I think it's how to build connection or rapport or something on a date. It's one of those posts. I can't remember the exact title, but it gives the basic flow to like get deep, like learn things deeply about a person. So one thing about kind of just basic human psychology is when people feel like you understand them better or you connect with them better, they think that they know you more deeply. So like if a person's revealing all their stuff and, going really deep, even you could even not give hardly any information about yourself. This happens with me all the time. On dates, the girl will give like 90% of like the deep stuff, and I won't really give that much. But because I'm listening and because I asked her about it and she's expressing it, she feels like she knows me deeper, even though it's really just I know her deeper. So that builds a connection. So that's one way to make it so that like the context of your relationship is different from other people, because you did all the same things that just two friends would do, guy or girl, or even not even friends, almost acquaintances, because even friends would usually talk kind of like deeper than that. Well, I guess it kind of depends on the context. Like if you're just hanging out with guy friends and you guys are just doing some activity, okay, maybe whatever. You didn't talk about or do anything that would make you different from just like a friend. And so if you guys are interacting and doing all the same things as friends, then she's just going to see you as a friend. So focus more on going deep with a small amount of topics and like the why and getting to the core of who she is, as opposed to just learning information about a shitload of surface level topics, because literally anyone could do that. So that's one way you can kind of get to know a person deeply and change the context of the conversation. Another way is to talk about taboo topics. If you talk about things like tattoos, it could be drugs, it could be literally any type of thing that it's taught is not polite, or it's taught like, oh no, well don't, that's not something you talk about in polite normal society. Well, you're not trying to be polite and normal here, you're trying to fuck this girl, so you want to talk about those things with her. So it could be drugs, it could be experiences she's had, like, oh, she's gone to a concert and crazy stuff that happened at a concert, or she went on some weekend getaway or some crazy shit like that. It could be sexual stuff. I actually usually don't talk too much about sexual stuff. Me personally, it doesn't really turn me on that much. Whatever. Like sometimes I will talk about it, but I don't actively make a point to do it. I usually talk about like drugs, or like kind of like naughty, like mean little things, quote unquote, like toxic things, because everyone does things where they're kind of like, I guess you could say you're like a bad person, or it's kind of like it's basically giving off the impression that you're not just this nice sweet little whatever on the surface, like you have a little bit of edge to you underneath. Yeah, just think of any topic, just think of, I would say, two or three topics that are like not polite to talk about, and make sure to mention those on the date. And then you can even go deep on those, and you get a connection on the taboo topics too. That really makes you feel like you know someone, because again, that like breaks the tension. Now that lets a person know, okay, cool, we are no longer talking as just like friends or doing surface level things. We are now like, you want a sexual relationship with this girl. You guys are going to connect on like the most, like the deepest, most intimate way you could possibly connect. So you can't go from friendly surface level conversation to the deepest, most intimate possible connection, which is having sex with someone. Like you can't really make that jump. Ideally, you want to get to the point to where the pull, like I said in the other audio, the pull is just capitalizing on the feelings and the relationship that you've developed over the course of the date. So if she just sees you as like a friend, you interacted in friendly ways, only talked about safe, friendly topics, then her receptiveness to the pull is going to be very low. But if she already sees you as a person, okay, I'm kind of a little bit connected to this person, I feel like I kind of know them a little bit deeply. We talked about taboo, like not safe for society subjects, which sex also is. Like, sex is another thing you don't do out in public. If you kind of built that relationship with them, then going for the pull and them coming back to your place and sleeping with you seems like a logical, like that just seems like a logical extension of it. You're like, okay, yeah, the trajectory and the momentum, yeah, it makes sense. Now we have this relationship. Now we are going to not capitalize on it. Yeah, we're just going to take it further to now sex. So yeah, I haven't gotten to the actual poll. I don't think it's actually the poll that's messing you up, because really, if everything is done right on the date, it kind of doesn't matter how you go for the pull, because she's gonna feel the feelings like she wants to sleep with you, or she's gonna feel like maybe she won't feel like, oh yeah, I definitely want to go back with this guy. But if you present the option, it seems natural because your relationship is kind of built up to that point over the course of the date. Also, so in addition to talking about those topics and getting her to kind of reveal that side of her, you also have to reveal that side of you. Like the deeper, darker kind of, like who you quote unquote really are. Because no one is this nice, sweet little whatever thing that they portray on the surface. Everyone has like deeper, darker thoughts or things that they don't necessarily portray in public on a consistent basis. So one part of bringing that out of another person is to you yourself display that. That's kind of a deeper level of expressiveness. So the first level of expressiveness is most people, they don't even express like the surface level stuff they want. And you've actually gotten a lot better at expressing those surface level things. So that is good. That is the first step. But the next step lower is kind of going deeper as far as portraying all of not just the surface level things, but like who you are as a person. And part of who everyone part of who everyone is as a person is things that are not necessarily politically correct, or they're maybe a little bit deeper, darker, or maybe a little bit aggressive or sexual or whatever. Expressiveness means expressiveness, expressing all parts of you. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a time and place. It's not like when you're talking to your grandma, you're going to talk about fucking doggy style or anything like that. But you know what I mean. With regards to girls you're trying to sleep with, you basically want to put out as much of who you are like as possible. All like the deeper, darker things, the aggressive things, the competitive things, the well, what do you think is bullshit, and give your honest opinion about it. Because I think you said in the your last audio, you're like, yeah, I try to disagree with her. But if you're only disagreeing about surface level things, then, I mean, yeah, I guess that's better than just going along with everything she says. But you want to get to a point where, so I don't even think about agreeing or disagreeing with people. Like, I never, like, I just say what I want. And then I've had plenty of dates where me and the girl literally agree on like fucking everything. Rapport is never broken. I never challenge her, nothing. And we sleep together. Because one of the reasons why people say to disagree is because it's to show that, oh, you're strong in your opinions and you don't just go along with whatever she says. But if you are just naturally expressing yourself and doing what you want and saying what you want, then she'll get that same impression that, oh, you can't be pushed around and you don't always agree and all that other stuff. Disagreeing signals that you have your own opinions and you're strong in them. But if you just naturally do that, then you don't even have to worry about agreeing or disagreeing. And it's a lot more important on like the deeper stuff. Like I've had girls who I like disagree with on like fundamental things. I've had girls who I disagree with on like deep political stuff, and then we still end up sleeping together. I had this one girl. This is fucking it's like 5 years ago, and we were on the date, and she even canceled the first time, and then we went on the second date, and she said something. I won't get into the whole thing, but it was something I was talking about like violence or something. I was talking about how some guy like did something and I like yelled at him or some shit like that. I can't remember. And she's like, well, you didn't really need to do that. You could have just like talked it out, blah, blah, whatever. And I was explaining, I was like, sometimes you can't talk stuff out. Like sometimes people who are very forceful and they're violent, like they only understand violence. People who are just naturally confrontational, you can't talk them out of it. You can't reason with unreasonable people, so you have to use unreasonable means. And we actually got into like kind of a legit argument about it. I was like, I'm sorry, that's just not the real world. I don't know like how you've been raised, but like there's times when you just cannot be reasonable with people. And we ended up sleeping together on the first date because one of the things she saw is that I'm strong in my frame. Like we disagreed deeply on a thing, but I wasn't giving in. I was like, no, this just is what I believe. Like some guys, like they would disagree and they'd be like, and then the girl would go against it. For some things, this is kind of a calibration you make as you go. I don't know if I can make any exact distinctions. There are times when I'll just be like, okay, well, agree to disagree with something that's not really a big deal, like surface level stuff. Agree to disagree, whatever. But for something that I just truly believe, I don't agree to disagree, and there is no compromise because that's what I believe and that's how I live my life. Like I don't compromise on it when I'm living, so I'm not gonna compromise it when you're asking me about it. And I remember like a few weeks later, she was doing her clinicals, and one of them was in just 3 hours away from. She drove 3 hours just to see me, overnight, and then she drove back there the next day to keep doing clinicals. Like that's how much she freaking liked me. And she said, she's like, you know what I really liked about you? You know when I can't remember. She said something on the lines of like, when like I decided that I really liked you, is I don't know if you remember. We were talking about blah blah blah, and we got into an argument, and you just didn't back down. Like most guys, they just kind of like agree with stuff I say, and it's just really annoying. But like you argued with me. She like laughed about it. Like you actually argued with me, and it's little things like that that differentiates me from other guys because how she sees it is okay. If he doesn't back down when I confront him, that means that men and other people in general in the world, he doesn't back down from that as well. So even though we disagreed, me disagreeing with her so strongly showed that I was a strong person because a person who gives into a random little fucking 110-pound girl is probably going to give in to like a lot of other things in life. So I say all this to say that like be expressive even with so go deep, express the deep parts about yourself, all parts about yourself, and don't back down from it. And when you do that, not only will the girl respect you, but also that will be more likely to get her to bring out those sides of her as well.